Closed captioning provided by Beaufort County.
Welcome to another edition of Coastline, and I am really excited this month because we are standing at the Parris Island Museum, and quite honestly, I've lived here over 30 years off and on, and I have never been to the Parris Island Museum, so I'm excited to see its curator. Is that what your title is?
That's my title, as curator of the museum.
All right, and this is Dr. Stephen Wise. He has been curator for the Parris Island Museum for 39 years. It's great to get together again and to find out a little bit about this wonderful, wonderful building.
Well, the building itself was started in 1949, completed in 1951. It was a recreational building. They had a library in here. At that time, what was called Special Services had their office in here. We had a soda fountain. We had a pool hall in this building. But the center area that we're standing in now, this rotunda, always had some sort of display. You can see the display cases that were built around here. And we refer to this as the War Memorial Building. And the portion you're standing in right now is the memorial section of this building.
Okay, and it's in amazing shape because I know this is open to the public, and probably you have thousands of people that come in here every month.
We get about 100,000, over 100,000 people a year coming through the museum.
Okay, and let's talk about the local flavor. This is actually open to the public.
Right.
Do they need to make, in these days of heightened security, do they need to make a reservation?
No, but they need to be sure they have their driver's license, or a real ID as we call it now. You need to have your driver's registration and up-to-date proof of insurance for your vehicle. And then you're allowed to come on the base. When you come to the base, say, I want to see the museum, and then they'll direct you on to us.
All right, and you are open from 8:30 to 4:30?
We're basically open 10 to 4:30 or 16:30, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and if there's graduation, we're open from 8 to 16:30 on Thursday and Friday, then on Saturdays from 10 to 16:30. And we're closed Sundays, we're closed holidays.
Okay, very good. No charge for it?
No charge, we are free.
All right, terrific. Now, you've been gracious enough to give us some of your museum technicians, and we're going to be talking to Emily in a minute. She's going to take us down the left hallway as you walk in, and that is the history of Port Royal Island.
Oh, correct.
And then you've given us Steve, who is a Marine himself. You never say former Marine, once a Marine,
right.
Always, and he is going to take us down the right hallway, which is the Marine Corps history of Parris Island itself.
Yeah, we were established in 1975 as a museum. That's when more of the structure was turned into actual exhibits. It was done by then Major General Robert Barrow. He then goes on to become Commandant. And he was very much emphasized the different themes that we have in the museum. Around the rotunda, we talk about the history of Parris Island when Marines, or in some cases the Navy, was located here. General Barrow wanted us to have a local military history section to really bring in the local populace to the museum. Then we have, of course, recruit training, as you mentioned, and then up on our second deck we have a huge area on the period of Marine Corps history that Marines that graduated from Parris Island participated in.
Mm-hmm. If somebody comes to the museum, there is so much here. How much time do you think should be devoted to getting everything?
1 to 2 hours. Now, if you stop to read every label, you'll be here all day.
Yeah, okay. And there's also part of the Marine Corps exhibit includes like a 15-minute movie.
We have a little theater, we have a gift shop, we have an archives here. If we have people doing research on the Marine Corps or Parris Island, we work with them as well.
Okay, people are so familiar with your name, now they can put a face to the name if they've never met you in person before. I know you and Dr. Larry Rowland are good friends, and you've collaborated on a number of articles and books and whatnot, so it's great to, you know, put your face on camera, but I know you're very busy, so we're going to go ahead and turn it over to one of your technicians.
Right.
And so Emily May is going to be joining us in just a second, but thank you so much,
okay.
Dr. Wise.
No problem.
Take care.
Right.
Well, we're back at the Parris Island Museum, and after having spoken to Stephen Wise, the curator, we're now joined by one of his colleagues. She is a museum technician here, and it's Emily May, and her area of expertise is actually the history of the Low Country and everything that led up to the founding of Parris Island and what it is today. So, Emily, thanks so much for joining us. I think it's kind of ironic that you're originally from San Diego, which is the western depot, a Marine Corps recruit depot, and you had an opportunity to come over here and you seized it. What do you think of Beaufort?
Well, I've been here about 3 years now, and I absolutely love it. It's, you know, the Low Country grows on you.
Absolutely. So one of the things you found out is that, oh, by the way, as we're sitting here, you may be listening to the music in the background. There's a lot of period music that plays as you're walking through the museum, and various songs that are representative of the various occupants of the Low Country, and we started to talk about some of those as early as right after, as you said in our pre-discussion, right after Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, everybody and his brother ended up coming down to the Low Country, right?
Exactly, exactly. So Port Royal Sound is one of the deepest natural harbors on the East Coast, especially this far south. So the Spanish and both the Spanish and the French originally totally honed in on it as an important strategic location for ships carrying treasure back to the old world.
And as people in various countries occupied the area, they found various reasons to occupy. So, for example, we were talking about the conquistadors that came in, and they were looking for gold and plunder, and they just didn't really find what they were looking for, did they? Tell us about that.
Exactly. So during the Spanish conquista of the Americas, they were primarily interested in precious resources, your gold, your silver, your jewels, and therefore they weren't really, the Low Country wasn't known for that. The Low Country was more a strategic location for the French than anything, and the Spanish. However, that turns out to be important when you have competing interests in the New World. So even though the conquistadors, who were really after it for the money, so to speak, you do have the Spanish and the French ending up competing over this area. Yeah.
So as I understood, the Spanish went ahead and decided to abandon the property, and then the French came in, including Jean Ribault, who we're all familiar with if we've driven down Ribault Road.
Exactly.
Tell us about him and why he decided that the French should occupy this area.
Yes, so Jean Ribault was a Huguenot from France. So part of him bringing this group of Huguenots was escaping the religious persecution in France and the wars that were going on at that time. But also, it's a great location to catch the Spanish ships who are coming up the coast and going back across the Atlantic to Spain. So that's a very lucrative spot for your pirates, so to speak.
Because as we've found out, if we've ever tried to deal with hurricanes, the nice inlay of Beaufort and Port Royal Sound kind of shelters you from storms that are coming in off the Atlantic.
Exactly.
And so it's a great place to put your boats, your ships, and to go ahead and run out of here and defend whatever you've got out there on high seas, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
You got it right there.
So the French then, they got into a skirmish with some of the locals?
The French, basically what happens is that Jean Ribault leaves after a few months to get reinforcements for their camp.
Okay.
But they don't really get along too well. The men who he leaves behind have trouble with the locals. They also didn't plant any crops, so what the locals could help them out with, they received no help. So, and Jean Ribault is also held up in France due to the religious wars there. So a mutiny occurs within the crew, and in response, the new leader of the group, Albert de la Pierre, hangs a couple of the old, the veterans of the crew, which did not go over well, and strands one of the other men on the local islands. So the crew mutinies, kills Albert de la Pierre, builds their own boat, rescues the guy on the other island, and sails back.
Except they get hungry along the way and
They
run out
did.
of food. Poor
LeChère, who's actually also the guy who was stranded on the island. So, you know, he got saved just to get eaten.
Oh, man, that's terrible. So the word gets out that the French are occupying the area, even though they have now started to head back.
Exactly.
Even though they didn't want it, the Spanish say, well, we'd rather have it than have anybody else have it. So in comes the Spanish again, and we've got a famous Menendez.
Pedro Menendez. King Philip sends him across to kick out the French. I always say there wasn't Twitter back then, so the lag was difficult. Even though the French had left, the Spanish came anyways.
Okay, so he occupies, and then people, of course, who've been here a while know that a total of 7 flags have flown over the Sea Islands. So the Spanish, the French, and the Indians, and now the English come in just before the Revolutionary War. Tell us about that.
So the English come in towards the end of the Spanish settlement there, and the Spanish decide to consolidate their empire further south.
And this is led by Sir Francis Drake.
Sir Francis Drake, exactly. And over the course of the 17th century, there's some explorers, but there's not a whole lot of action until Beaufort gets established in 1712.
And the big thing here is indigo, right?
Indigo, yes. Indigo was the first major cash crop. It's what dyes your clothes blue.
All right. So then fast forward to the American Revolution.
Exactly.
The English get kicked out. The Americans begin to settle down here. And what do they end up developing as far as their crop?
So they begin planting Sea Island cotton, which is a very fine, makes all the best clothes in Europe cotton.
Yeah, you thought Giza cotton was good. You thought Egyptian cotton was good. It doesn't compare to Sea Island cotton.
Exactly.
So the cotton crop is big, and this is brings us right up to the time of the Civil War. And all of these different eras are represented here on the left side of the building. So this is definitely fact-filled information building, right?
Oh, yes, sir. It is definitely, you can learn a lot about the Low Country and about Parris Island while you're here.
All right. Well, before we get on Parris Island side, tell us about the Civil War real quick. What happened with the various occupations during that time?
Of course. So early on in the Civil War, the Union recognized the Port Royal area as a strategic location for their blockade of the East Coast. And so early on in the war, on November 7th, 1861, the Union sends a fleet led by Samuel Dupont and takes the Sea Island area, takes Beaufort, and begins an experiment for what would later be Reconstruction by redistributing lands to former slaves.
Yeah, okay. And then meanwhile, Sherman has he's burnt down Atlanta, and he's working his way over to Savannah, right?
Exactly. He's working his way over to Savannah, and an order is sent to the troops that are garrisoned in Beaufort to basically go and try to cut the rail line from Charleston to Savannah in order to disrupt the Confederate defenses. So that culminates in the Battle of Honey Hill, which is a local battle here that we have displayed.
And there's a big display here on the Battle of Honey Hill, along with some other wonderful displays, muskets, artillery, shell, all this stuff. Plus, quickly tell us about that canoe.
Of course. So in 1990, an archaeological expedition dug out a Mississippian era. That's one of the eras of native peoples here in the Low Country. They dug out a canoe from that era, and we have that on display here at the museum. It's been preserved so that it can be on display, which was a long, tedious process.
All right, Emily, there's so much we could talk about, but I've got to go talk to Steve and find out about the Marine Corps. Thank you so much. If anybody would like a tour of the Parris Island Museum, be sure to ask for Emily when you go on the Port Royal Island side. Thanks so much. We'll be back talking to Steve Price, who is a Marine, and he's going to tell us about the history of Parris Island. Well, it has been said that once a Marine, always a Marine, and there are no retired Marines. And Stephen Price started here at Parris Island, and then he ended up going into civilian life. But like so many people, the Low Country brought you back, the love of the Marine Corps, and now you are actually a tour guide here, or I guess they call you guys museum technicians.
Yes, sir.
And just like Emily does the Port Royal side, you do the Marine Corps side, and you'll see behind me it's distinctly different from what we saw over there. You get a good sense of what happens from the moment you get off the bus that brings you here. And tell us a little bit about this lower deck informational wall and everything that is around here, including I hear the hymn of the Marine Corps behind me.
Yes, sir. So this wing is First Deck West Wing, and it's all about modern recruit training, what it takes to become a United States Marine today, as you said earlier, from the yellow footprints all the way around to graduation. So the photographs we have here and the verbiage we have on the wall this is created more for the families when they come here. So we always have a graduation on Fridays. The day prior to that, on Thursday, is called Family Day. And they walk around the museum, or not just the museum, they walk around the entire base, okay? They have access to most of the base. And these kids want to take them around, show them what they did and where they trained, and tell them stories about training. But now they can come in here in the museum, and we have this whole wing set up for the families. So they can see and kind of interact a little bit with what their young child, whether it be male or female, did as a recruit here at Parris Island. And then, as you said, we have the film in the back, so that kind of shows them more of a visual, moving photographs of what they went through and how things were done to turn them into United States Marines.
Now, having lived here in the Low Country for almost 30 years, I know it's so famous that every Marine you talk to will say, well, they've got a lot more easier now than when I was a Marine.
Right.
And but when I first came here, basic was 12 weeks, and now it's 13 weeks, right?
Yes.
And you've added the last phase, the crucible, as part of this. So for some people, it might be said that it's actually a little more difficult than back in the 70s.
Well, here's the thing about that, okay? Here in the museum, I'm a subject matter expert on recruit training. We started training recruits here, male recruits here in 1915. We started training female recruits here in 1949. And every single Marine that's ever been 2 days before you came in the Marine Corps, you had it easy, okay? And most Marines, that's all tongue in cheek, and that's all it is, okay? We're a brotherhood. We're a family. So the thing is, though, is that as recruit training has changed, as times have changed, it has to. Recruit training here is a living, breathing entity, and it has to change with the times and the information that's out there. And most Marines, whether they like to admit it or not, what's going on in the civilian world does have implications in the Marine Corps, okay? And recruit training shows that. Just as a little point of fact, okay? I've talked to several drill instructors, and this is something they told me years ago that I thought about it. So back when I came in 1982, I came from your standard family structure, mom, dad, a couple of sisters, and then me, okay? Nowadays, most kids are coming in single parent households.
Right.
So it's a different animal when these young men especially have been raised by their mom for the most part. That's how it's kind of going these days. And now they have to come in and take orders from a man. So it's a little bit different. So the approach and how we do things have to change.
But
have
some
to morph.
things never change.
Sure.
Like I see, you've got a poster there of coming off, getting the yellow footprints. Everybody gets in line. Drill sergeant starts yelling at him.
Yes,
drill
sir.
instructor, that's
Right.
drill sergeant's army. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
And drill instructors start yelling at them. Next thing you know, they're getting their heads shaved off, and immediately there's a sense of discipline here,
Yes.
which is critical for Marines.
Well, that first stage of recruit training is ripping away their civilian mindset. We have to get rid of that. And then that's the first phase. And the other three phases we have, because now we have 4 phases in recruit training, and that's building that young person back into being a Marine, getting rid of all their civilian bad habits and teaching them how to think, act, and move as a United States Marine. So when they walk across that parade deck, when they graduate, they're ready to go into the fleet and start executing their missions.
All right. Now, we are talking about what the Marine Corps is all about. That's really well represented here on the lower deck. You have a gift shop there next to the movie theater, but the history, the true history of the Parris Island Marine Corps Recruit Depot is up on the second floor. So let's go ahead and go on up there now, and we'll find out more. We'll be right back, guys. And we're up here on the second deck now, and Steve, you were telling us about what happens when you become a Marine, but of course there's a rich history associated with this, and as you come up the second floor and go into the elevator, you'll find that the second deck is considerably larger than what we saw downstairs, so you had to have it this big in order to capture the entire history. Tell us, we knew from talking to Emily that this originally was a naval depot, correct? Yes, so tell us what happened, when it got established, and how it became the Marine Corps Recruit Depot.
Well, the Marine Corps Recruit Depot was stood up in October of 1915, and they wanted to use Parris Island because at the time it was isolated. There was no road coming here. The only way here was by boat. So it was isolated, and they had plenty of, the island wasn't near as, it doesn't have the infrastructure it does today, of course, so there was plenty of areas to train, out in the field, out in the woods, that sort of thing. And the recruit depot was stood up because of those things, and that way they could concentrate on just training recruits. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, actually up till the 1950s, if you didn't belong out here, you weren't getting out here. Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, that's all there was to it. They didn't. It wasn't open like it is today.
So, and of course, this was taken over by the Marine Corps when the Navy decided that they really didn't. It wasn't meeting their needs, and so they moved on up to Norfolk. And
well, they moved to Charleston.
Or Charleston.
Yes, sir,
okay.
Charleston.
And so that left this amazing. How many acres? Roughly thousands of acres, right?
Couple hundred. About 3,200 square acres.
Okay, all right, very good. And so really you began to flourish as an institution leading up into World War I, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Tell us a little bit about what we're looking at here. Now, this isn't World War I, is it? This is beyond that. No, actually, it says 1903 on that Springfield rifle. So tell us a little bit about
that's for the bayonet. So what we have here, when you come up on the second deck in the museum and you turn to your left, it starts at the year 1900, mm-hmm. goes all the way around to 2015. Mm-hmm. So the history we have here, what we're talking about is Banana Wars, World War I, Banana Wars again, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, mm-hmm. and also some of the peacekeeping missions we executed with excellence during the 1980s as well. Mm-hmm. Now what we have in this case is artifacts from World War II, mm-hmm. The early portion of the war, but one of my favorite artifacts we have here is this Mamaluke saber. Mm. So this Mamaluke saber was actually the officer in command of the Marine Guard. Every battleship had a Marine detachment on board for a guard, and he was Major Allen Sharpley. He was in command. Mm-hmm. He actually had given up command. He'd been relieved of his command, was going on to another duty station on the 6th of December. He spent the night on the ship on the 7th, mm-hmm. or the evening of the night of the 6th, and he was still on the ship in the morning of the 7th.
Yeah.
Now, he survived the sinking of the battleship and the huge conflagration that went off when that forward magazine blew up.
Yeah.
But on the back side of the sword, it is burned. Mm-hmm. So this was right on the edge of that fire that you see, and later on it was recovered and returned to him. Okay. And he did, like I said, he retired as a lieutenant general later on in his career.
All right, so at its height of training people for men, I guess back then, men for the First World War, you had like 43,000 recruits here.
Yes, between 43 and 46,000 recruits were trained for World War I.
After World War I, though, it got down to some days you'd only have 4 recruits.
Yes, sir. 4 to 8 recruits being a platoon starting their training.
Holy mackerel.
And at one point in the early 1930s, they dropped recruit training down to 4 weeks. Mm. Then it went back up to 8, and then it went to 11. And then in 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, it went back down to 4. Mm. And they realized 4 weeks just wasn't long enough.
Yeah, yeah.
So very quickly they went back up because they thought once Germany invaded Poland that we're all going to get involved in this war. Well, America didn't for a couple more years. Mm-hmm. So recruit training, went back to longer. And then after December 7th, 1941, it was dropped to 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. And by February of 1942, out on the rifle ranges, we were qualifying 2,500 recruits every single day.
Amazing.
Every day. And during World War II, Parris Island trained in excess of 215,000 recruits from 1941 to 1945.
Okay, just to get back a little bit about why Parris Island was established, you had the individual who wanted to have a standard syllabus,
Right.
you said, and that was actually a couple of the commandants of the Marine Corps.
Yes, sir.
And so they decided that the Marine Corps at Parris Island would be the ideal location.
Yeah, at the time when they had recruit training going on, when you join the Marine Corps, you'd go usually to your nearest naval station, naval base that had a Marine Guard, and they would train you there when and however they could. It was not a good system.
Yeah.
So starting with Colonel Biddle, later on another commandant right after him, they decided they needed to make a standard syllabus for recruit training. The problem with having recruit training aboard naval installations is the fact it's a Navy yard.
Yeah.
So there's a whole lot going on in that Navy yard, and recruits kind of getting in the way.
So the best thing that really happened was that a hurricane hit here in 1940, right? And everything
sir.
got the chance to be rebuilt.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I hate to say this, but we are completely out of time. If you want to know the rest of the story, you're going to have to come here to the Parris Island Museum on the Parris Island Marine Corps Recruit Depot, and be sure when you ask for your tour guide that you ask for Steve, because he knows more about the Marine Corps and about the history of this wonderful corps than anybody else, shy of maybe Dr. Wise. Thanks so much,
Yes,
Steve.
sir. You're welcome. My pleasure.
That's it for another edition of Coastline. Join us again next month.